Live from the American Midwest, this is Blurb Sell Books, the show where we talk copywriting so you can win over readers. I'm your host, Best Page Forward editor and lead trainer, John Fiffian. Today's show is brought to you by Brian Cohen's Best Page Forward, where you can get a custom description for your book. For more information, visit bestpageforward.net/blurbs. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm missing my co-host. Hopefully she is okay and not actually missing in action. But I will do my best to fill in for both Abigail and myself today. So as you know, what we like to do here on Blurb Sell Books is talk about blurbs. Right, so I'm going to jump in straight away to our nifty little feature that we call Blurb Theory. And if you're watching this live on Facebook, you can see my cute little owl with his mortarboard on. Okay, so Blurb Theory today is a topic that I like to explore regularly when we're talking about blurbage, and that is stakes and cliffhangers. So today's Blurb Theory is called Hang 'em High. If you watch just about any modern TV show, you're familiar with cliffhanger endings. Especially in the age of entire seasons dropping on Netflix at once, the cliffhanger is an excellent tactic to get you to binge the whole thing in a day. And, of course, finishing the final episode with an open question is a tried and true method for making viewers salivate in anticipation of the next season. If you're as old as I am, then you'll recall that back in the summer of 1980, all of America feverishly pondered, who shot JR? Well, this storytelling technique works great in advertising too, and longtime listeners of Blurb Sell Books know we extol the virtues of using it in your description. To make it work, you need high stakes. At Best Page Forward, we believe there are only three that are worth hanging your blurb on: death, love, or enlightenment. You see, we need to make those stakes so high that the reader just has to find out what happens. If you break down the word cliffhanger, that first word is really crucial. You can't just leave the audience hanging from anywhere. It needs to be from a cliff. A short drop to the ground isn't dramatic enough. A long plummet to certain doom is. Now, few things are more dramatic than dying. If you write just about any kind of action-adventure fiction, asking if your hero will survive long enough to save the world or anyone else is a good way to hook readers into wanting to know the outcome. Now, it's hard to imagine any stakes higher than death, but love just might qualify. If you've ever had your heart broken, you know that having to go on after having lost love is agonizing. So, asking the reader if your protagonist will secure their happily ever after or totally blow it, well, that's hanging them from a cliff. Now, enlightenment may not seem like very high stakes, but if you've written a literary or women's fiction novel, the inner journey to ultimate peace and wisdom is often the whole book. Can that main character figure out how to be happy, make their dreams come true, achieve contentment? These may seem like puerile questions against love or death, but the biggest mystery of human existence is, why are we here? And individually, we crave happiness and satisfaction. Enlightenment questions can hit readers right in the feels. Your blurb needs a cliffhanger with one of these three stakes, and it works best if you pose it as a question. Will the hero die? Will the lovers make it? Will they discover the meaning of life? If you ask the question, the reader has to wonder. And if the rest of the blurb has gotten them invested in the character, they'll want to know the answer. So pose the big question in your book descriptions. Hang your main characters from a cliff. If you make those stakes high enough, your sales will shoot through the stratosphere. All right, so that's all for blurb theory today. But we want to make sure you understand that you need a cliffhanger at the end of your at the end of your blurb if you're going to make that a really, really compelling blurb. Okay, well, our regular feature on Blurb Sell Books, as we just cruise right along into it, is our dissection of a blurb by a listener. And if you would like to have us, have Abigail and I, or in this case, just me, workshop your blurb live on the air, you can send it to blurbssellbooks@gmail.com. That's blurbssellbooks@gmail.com. Okay, so this week's blurb comes to us from Cecily Wolf, and it is for the book American Girls. So let me just bring it up on the screen here for those of you watching along on Facebook. There it is. And I will do my customary cold read. I have not looked at this before. Abigail sent it to me last night, and I've just now pasted it in, so I have no idea what I'm about to read, but I'll give you my hot take. Here we go. Love, loyalty, lies. Twin sisterhood has a price. How long could you keep a life-changing secret from your twin? Pretty, popular high school sophomore Victoria discards boys as easily as she finds them, unlike her bookish and brilliant sister Thora. When Chris, the senior football captain, develops an inexplicable interest in Thora, Victoria becomes wary. She'll do anything to protect her twin, even as her own love life grows complicated. As Thora becomes distant and secretive, Victoria is determined to discover what is going on between Thora and Chris, no matter the cost. Told as a flashback years later as Victoria wrestles with disastrous adult relationships and Thora's impending marriage, secrets kept for decades sustain an emotional minefield. Will painful memories destroy their chance to reunite? Or is it too late? Written by two sisters incorporating real childhood and adolescent memories with fictional details, American Girls looks at the best and worst of growing up girls in the 1980s Midwest and the devastating power secrets can wield over the closest of relationships. Perfect for fans of Jodi Picoult and Jocelyn Jackson. Okay, so we have a number of nice things going on here. Definitely feel the contrast between the two. Oh, that's not a good look. Here, let's do this one. There we go. Now you can still look at the blurb. Can definitely feel the contrast between these two sisters and their twins on top of it. So that really kind of amps up the stakes for them right away. So as I jump into the good stuff of Abigail's examination, without the benefit of Abigail, I really like the fact that we've got our contrasting twins set up right away. We've got the one, Victoria, who discards boys as easily as she finds them. Wow, what a great picture that draws. And we've got the bookish Thora, So quite a bit of good stuff happening there right off the bat. We understand that these two sisters are very, very different, yet twins. And then we have the complication of the fact that the bookish one, the one who doesn't discard boys as easily as she finds them, attracts the football captain. And now our popular girl, Victoria, is she jealous? Is she worried? What does she know about Chris that maybe we're not being told? And we've got this sense of obsession here. She's going to find out what's going on between them no matter the cost. So, really great personal stakes there for Victoria. Excuse me. Now, then in the second paragraph, we're given some more information about this being a flashback. And Victoria, we now discover, has been having disastrous adult relationships. And Thora's getting ready to get married. And maybe it's to Chris. So if it is, then that just really amps up the tension from the first paragraph, where Victoria was determined to find out what's going on between them. And secrets kept for decades sustain an emotional minefield. So, boom, we know maybe Victoria never did find out what was going on, and it's a secret that's been eating the two of them alive for the rest of their youth and into their adult lives. And somehow it's got to get resolved before this wedding. And will it allow them to reunite, or is it going to tear them apart at the seams, right? So really good stuff there. And then one of the third thing that I really kind of like about this is the idea that the book is written by two sisters, and it incorporates real childhood and adolescent memories with fictional details. So we have the idea right away here that this is like a semi-autobiographical novel. We don't know if the conflicts between the authors that are the same as the ones that are in the novel, and if maybe these this is them working to patch up their relationship years later, or if in fact all of this is a metaphor for something else that happened between them. But regardless, we know that this is real, raw American adolescent girlhood. And we're given the time period, 1980s Midwest. So it's just good, right in the heartland of America, about what's happening with these two sisters. So really good stuff here. And we also talked about one more thing, the devastating power secrets can wield over the closest of relationships. So we get the sense we're going to learn an important lesson here too. So these are the good things that I find in this blurb. Really nice building of the tension overall. So let's look for some ways we can improve this. So here we go. Improvement number 1. Okay. So the first thing that I notice as I'm examining this is that not only am I outside Victoria's perspective, I'm not entirely certain whose story this is. So we have pretty popular high school sophomore Victoria discards boys as easily as she finds them. That paints a really nice picture, unlike her bookish and brilliant sister, Thora. Also, a very nice picture. But we don't exactly know whether the subject of this sentence, even though Victoria in terms of grammatical construction, Victoria is the subject of this sentence, but the way it's constructed, we're not certain the sentence is about Victoria or is it about Thora. We just know that we have these two girls, and it's not clear to us which one is our point of view character. When Chris, the senior football captain, develops an inexplicable interest in Thora, Victoria becomes wary. Okay, wait, maybe now Victoria is the point of view character. And she'll do anything to protect her twin. And as Thora becomes distant and secretive, Victoria is determined to discover what's going on. So now we do have a reasonably good idea that this is Victoria's story. But there's so much of Thora in this first paragraph that it's not exactly clear why this matters to Victoria. And we're outside her perspective. She discards boys as easily as she finds them. She becomes wary when Chris develops an inexplicable interest in Thora. And I kind of love the idea of this, that Victoria can't understand why Chris would be interested in Thora, but I don't know why it's inexplicable. I don't know what's happening, what Thora knows about Chris or rather what Victoria knows about Chris that would make this interest inexplicable and give her reason to be wary. And again, we're looking down on the whole situation from above because she becomes wary as a result of this other action outside herself over here. She'll do anything to protect her twin, and that is definitely inside Victoria's perspective. So now we've dropped down inside her head, even as her own love life grows complicated. But now we're back out of it. And this is one of these things, her own love life grows complicated. As I highlight this here for those of you watching on Facebook, what does this mean? What do we mean about her own love life growing complicated? Because we've been told she discards boys as easily as she finds them. So how has that gotten complicated? And then Thora becomes distant and secretive, and Victoria is determined to discover what is going on between them, no matter the cost. And again, we're looking out through Victoria's eyes, but it's hard to tell what's at stake here. Because Thora's become distant and secretive. We know that's a bad thing, or we assume it is. And Victoria is determined to discover what's going on, and she's going to do it no matter what it costs her, or maybe her relationship with her sister. There's so much happening in this sentence, or in this first paragraph, rather, with 5 sentences, that we just don't really have a good idea what we're supposed to care about, what we're supposed to worry about. So I think what I would do to try and improve on this first issue is to really chop out some of these details and then add in a few that tell us what's going on. So we always, at Best Page Forward, we always tell our writers that don't go with any character names beyond the main character. Now, if this is a 2 point of view story, if we know it's written by 2 sisters, so if this book is written from the point of view of both Victoria and Thora, then I would say that each of them needs their own paragraph to describe their view of this conflict. But if this is really Victoria's story, if it's about her blowing up her relationship with her twin sister and then trying to fix it years later, then let's get rid of every name but Victoria's. So we can refer to her bookish and brilliant twin sister, and we can refer to the shady senior football captain. But we want all of these people, if you think about your own life, no matter how much you love the folks who are closest to you, your world, it really, you rotate at the center of your own world. So all the other characters in your story come to the point of being in your orbit. So we need to do that with our books too. We need to have our main character be named, and everyone else is referred to as they relate to our main character. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Abigail Dunard has made it into the studio. Here she is. Hello.
Hello. So,
were you able to hear anything when you were waiting to be let into the studio?
Yeah, I did hear you talking about we only need Victoria's name, and yeah, that was about all I caught.
Okay, so let me just briefly catch you up. This first paragraph, I've moved on to, I'm in improvement number 1 at this point. We've got a lot of great details in here in terms of building the tension between the sisters, but it's difficult to determine who the book is about and what the nature of the conflict is. So what I was suggesting was that is if this is not a 2 point of view book where we have part of the tale told from Victoria's POV and part of the tale told from Thora's, then we need to just have Victoria's name and let everybody else just sort of be referred to as they relate to Thora.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think I did hear you talking about the two sisters as possibly being 2 different POVs since it's written by real life sisters.
Right.
So yeah, that obviously, if that's the case, then we'd want to do probably one from each, I would imagine, if it's split, 50-50. But yeah, otherwise, from what we get right here, this makes me think that it's definitely Victoria's story, and that's who we should be focusing in on. Yeah, it's because especially since we're throwing so many names in the first couple of sentences, that can be tricky and feel a little bit overwhelming for readers. So I agree.
Right. Excellent. Well, since you're here, let's now make this Abigail's examination. All right, so if we move on to improvement number 2, and we can do a 4th improvement if you've come up with 3 completely different from the one I've already given.
Perhaps, yeah. I didn't talk about that, but I thought about the names but
well, then we'll go back to improvement number 1 here.
So
and start from
great. So you get even more improvements.
Yep. All right, so go ahead.
So my first improvement that I would recommend making is I was a little unclear as to what the genre was here. So starting out in the first paragraph, I get a YA vibe. So we've got 2 high school students who are twins. The senior football captain is crushing on the bookish nerd, and that to me feels very YA. But then we go back down to paragraph 2, told as a flashback years later, and they're all grown up, and then they're looking back on this past of them in high school. And that to me, some of the issues that are brought up there, adult relationships that are disastrous, Thora's marriage, which seems like there's something going on amiss with that marriage since it's impending. Secrets kept for decades. All those things feel more like a women's fiction or lit fiction. And so I think because the author was had mentioned in a note that she sent us that she was having some trouble, finding an audience for this. And I think that might be part of the reason, because if you read the first paragraph and you're like, oh, this is YA, but that's not what you're looking for, you scared off a bunch of the readers. And then there's, of course, the third possible kind of genre that ties in is the semi-autobiographical kind of, part memoir almost with fiction, because they are incorporating their real life experiences in this fiction story. So you're kind of pulling things in different directions. The other genre that I thought of, and it might just be me, when I think of American Girls, I think of the collection of dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And the collection of books that go with them. And so, immediately right there, I think middle-age fiction. Or middle grade fiction. So I think it feels a little bit all over the place just from the topics that are dealt with at different parts of the blurb. So
I think you make a couple of great points here. The first one is, let's talk about the title of the book, because I will tell you, I have 2 daughters, and American Girl was a big part of my life for a while. And because that brand is so iconic to probably your target reader, I think that this may be a case where retitling the book will do you a service, because not that there's anything wrong with the title American Girls, but if you are writing a book about 2 sisters and your target audience is Gen X and early millennial readers, then probably you're going to be making the wrong association here for them. Mm-hmm. So that's great point number 1. I thought you brought up. And the other thing is, as you say, we don't have a clear look at the genre here. My question is this a frame tale wherein we open at the current moment in time and then go back and tell this YA story? Or is this a women's fiction novel that flashes back and forth between present and past? And it's just not clear to us, because you're right. That entire first paragraph screams YA romance. And then we get into the next paragraph and we're like, wait, is this actually women's fiction? And we don't want to confuse our readers. Brian Cohen, founder of Best Page Forward, loves to say, the confused mind says no. And if you confuse your readers, they're going to say, I don't get this book. I'm going to go look for something I understand better. So I feel like we need to know what our genre is, and then we need to write to it. Okay, let's move on to improvement number 2.
Number 2. So my number 2 sort of ties in with my number 1, because I think depending on what your answer for number 1 is, like what genre do you want to cater this blurb to, will kind of make some... we'll determine how you're going to move forward with improvement number 2. So it seems like my gut feeling, and the fact that it says told as a flashback years later, it feels like it will be like jumping back and forth in time. So if that's the case, I want to know what is at stake for the main character right now in her present, instead of, the only thing that we get right here is the fact that Victoria has kept some secret from her sister. And then she, back in high school, was suspicious of this senior football captain and wants to protect her sister. And then we get this bit of information that, will this destroy their chance to reunite? So something has torn them apart, and we aren't given that information. So knowing at least given like some sort of clue or hint to point us in the right direction as to what that breakup looked like between the two sisters and how that's impacting them now. So I want to know, more about the disastrous adult relationships she's having, or, why is this wedding such an ominous event that's coming up? So yeah, I want to see from the very first sentence, Victoria, struggling with this, her broken relationship with her sister, and then kind of we can. You got all the dogs here excited too. So yeah, just having that be front and center, and then saying, hinting heavy at the fact that there were some secrets, from their high school years that, she's been holding on to, and it's really like caused a rift between the two of them. Then the main conflict for the main character then becomes, is she willing to reveal the secret? Could it possibly, injure the relationship to the point where it can't be mended? Is she going to do that, or is she going to keep the secret and hope that it's never revealed? So, yeah. What do you have to say to that?
Mabel apologizes for stirring up your dogs. Spoiler alert, she actually doesn't apologize for that.
Yeah.
I think
no apologies needed.
I think your point is well taken here. I mean, we don't have clear stakes, and it would be helpful to really zero in on what this book is about, so that the reader knows exactly what they're going to be reading here. It's not just confusing in terms of genre, but in terms of, I think we know that the relationship between the two sisters is at stake. And I think we know that it's because of this secret relationship, but we just don't have a clear idea how it all fits together, and we need to.
Mm-hmm. Is it a secret relationship, or... See, I didn't get that. I just got I meant secret, and I don't know what the Yeah, see, no, and that would be nice to know, like, what sort of secret. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, all we know is that Thora and Chris got secretive and distant in high school, and we presume that Victoria has never recovered from this. Mm-hmm. But Abigail and I are not suggesting that you reveal the secret here. We just don't understand what's at stake, because we don't really have a good idea what's happening in the book.
Yeah, because the secret could be anything from, Victoria murdered Kristen and buried him behind the football stadium, or Victoria was cheating on her sister cheating. Well, I guess that's not on her sister, but cheating with Chris, those are completely different secrets, and you can guide readers toward what type of secret it is without revealing the the actual secret. And I
Right,
know
and that just presumes
very
that
difficult.
Victoria's the one with the secret,
Yeah.
and that it's not actually Thora,
Mhm.
and that Thora just refused to tell her what was going on, and Victoria was like, "You're my twin. How can you do this to me?"
Yeah.
And 10, 15 years later, they're still mad about it. I
Mhm.
mean, we just don't know. So, it's not that we need to know what the secret is. We need to know what the situation is.
Yes. Yeah, because we want readers to have like, ooh, maybe it's something like this, or maybe, like for them to be anticipating, in a, ooh, I wonder what this juicy secret is. Because right now it's like, oh, I don't get that kind of sense of mystery here, even though, sometimes telling people a little bit more makes things more mysterious. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you don't tell them anything and try to be super mysterious, then it's so vague that you've killed the mystery, and it could be anything. So there's not readers don't have any place where they can stand and pick which direction they think it's going to go. So.
Yeah, and as a former best page forward writer trainer, Abigail, I mean, that we struggle with this a lot when we get submissions from mystery writers, because they don't want to reveal the secret of who done it, so they don't tell us either. And then we're like, all we get is they follow some clues. Then they discover who the killer is. And that, and I'm like, I need more if I'm going to A, tell the story of your detective, and B, not accidentally spoil the ending because I might have told them who the killer was without realizing it. So this, anytime we have a mystery in a book, because this is obviously not a mystery novel, but there's a pretty big mystery at stake here, and I think our natural inclination is to try and make it so mysterious and unknowable that you'll just have to read the book to find out what it is. But if it's too mysterious and unknowable, then we don't get interested enough to find out what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at the Da Vinci Code, here's a book that has a fairly big secret at the end of it. But we know from the get-go that there's been this murder at the Louvre, and the victim has used his own blood to, recreate Da Vinci's The Man and that kind of thing, and that there are tons of clues incorporated in this, and so they've called in an icon expert in Robert Langdon to have a look at this. But we know some of the details early on, so that we get intrigued by what's happening. And he doesn't, and not that Dan Brown writes his own blurbs, but they don't indicate even a whiff of what the true story is, but they give us enough to wonder what's going on here. And right now we don't have any details. I kind of brought this up before you came on the air, Abigail. We don't understand why it's inexplicable the football captain would be interested in bookish Thora. We don't understand what it means by Victoria's own love life growing complicated. We got to know something here. Mm-hmm. That'll make us interested in finding out what happens to this woman and the relationship that she presumably destroys with her twin sister.
Yep. A few well-placed details can really put that blurb, up to the next level and really get readers interested.
Yep. Yep. All right, let's go to improvement number 3.
So improvement number 3 is pretty short and simple, to the point. I feel like this blurb has 2 headlines or 2 hooks, mm-hmm. and one of them's got to go. Mm-hmm. Just because if you have 2 hooks, 2 hooks are not better than one. You're splitting reader's attention between the two of them, and you're kind of diluting your pow kapow at the beginning. So, yep.
It's sort of like tripping out of the blocks on a race, right? So like if you think of the hook as the starter pistol, right? And so everybody's in the blocks and you read the hook and it's okay, go. No, wait. Okay, now go. And it just kills the initial momentum that you have to rebuild up over time. And we don't want to do that. No. and you've got the thing about it is that they're both pretty good hooks.
Yeah.
The first one is the sort of standard 3 things and then a punchline: love, loyalty, lies. Twin sisterhood has a price. Ooh. I wonder what kind of a price it is. Mm-hmm. And then we have the sort of Adam Croft style hook of how long could you keep a life-changing secret from your twin? That works pretty well. I think I kind of like the first one better. But regardless, don't start us, then stop us, then start us again, because the initial momentum lost is hard to recover.
Yeah. Well,
other thoughts on that?
I will say I like both of them. They're both good in different ways, but I almost want like some sort of descriptor before price. Like something to a
terrible price.
Yeah. Like almost like something that can't be stood and
yeah.
See, this is why I need my thesaurus.
An unthinkable price.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So that's another little tip that I would use there. So.
All right. Well, that's this week's blurb from Cassidy Wolf. So now we'll drop very quickly into targeted takeaways. And Abigail, you're somewhat at a disadvantage today, not having heard blurb theory. But it was pretty much all about the importance of a cliffhanger and how you have to have the stakes high for the cliffhanger to work. You'll appreciate the title. I went very Clint Eastwood. The title of Blurb Theory this week was Hang 'em High. So, see, I knew you would appreciate it.
I missed it.
Okay, so if we know that we have to have a high stakes cliffhanger, and we've looked at this blurb and we've kind of seen that we're not real sure what our genre is, and it kind of starts and stops, and we don't have a clean sense of what the stakes are here. What are your targeted takeaways from all of this?
So I would think back to the fact that we kind of sort of know what the stakes or some of the conflicts might be within the first YA selling paragraph, but we need to know what the stakes are now. So sometimes I do see readers, or not readers, sometimes I see people who are writing their book descriptions will focus on conflicts that had already happened, and so this final cliffhanger has to be the major conflict that is going to be resolved by the end of the book. So not like some small ones that come up before or something that they dealt with in the past. And I know that's difficult to have that be your cliffhanger without spoiling the end of your book. And I think that's why some writers will kind of shy away from that. So I'll say, don't be afraid to show, the final cliffhanger, the final, what's at stake. Mm-hmm. That's what readers are going to be following this book for.
Yeah, I think, listen, I hope I'm not bursting anybody's bubble here, but if it happens in the first half of your book, it's not a spoiler. because if you don't tell readers about it in the blurb, reviewers are going to tell them about it in the review. Reviewers just are not all that careful about what they spoil and what they don't. So just tell yourself anything that happens in the first half of my book is fair game. And so for this particular book, I really want to know what genre it is, because if it's YA, then we need to forget about everything that's happening in the frame tale flashback and that sort of thing. We need to focus on that high school plot. And if it's women's fiction, if it's really about this life story between these two sisters, how this singular event in high school caused a rift between them that now they've got one last chance to repair, which frankly is what I think the book is about, but I can't be certain, but this is what I think it's about. And if that's the case, then we need to use that. The blurb really needs to focus on the present. Mm-hmm. Don't talk much about high school. You can talk about the fact, and I would put it in like the first or second sentence of the blurb, that this terrible secret from high school ruined their friendship. And now Thora's about to get married, and it's the last chance, Victoria and Thora have to mend their relationship and become true sisters again. Mm-hmm. And you can have the sort of nonfiction explainer paragraph like you did. I mean, like I said, I presume that this is a semi-autobiographical novel, since we have two sisters writing about, the kinds of things they dealt with. So there's nothing wrong with having that in an explainer paragraph after you've hooked us with the story. Mm-hmm. But we need to zero in on what the real conflict of the novel is. And I think right now what we're zeroed in on is, what is this secret? And that's not what the book is about. Unless I'm vastly mistaken. The book's not about the secret. The book is about trying to recover from the damage this secret has done. And that's where you want to put the focus of your blurb, because then you will find the readers you're looking for.
Excellent.
All right. Well, we've done it again, Abigail. We've made it to the end of yet another episode of Blurbs Sell Books. Hang on whilst I get to here we go. So if all this seems overwhelming or just too complicated, folks, well, then we encourage you, of course, to visit our sponsor, Brian Cohen's bestpageforward.net/blurbs, where you will get a pristine, professionally written book description along with 10 Amazon ad hooks and some Facebook ad copy for you. Okay, so we want to thank you for tuning in to another thrilling episode of Blurbs Sell Books. We want to extend a special thanks to Cecily Wolf for submitting their blurb to the show. Now, if you'd like Abigail and I to workshop your description on the air, email us at blurbsellbooks@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the scintillating sea of book description copywriting. Until then, I'm John Fithian. She's Abigail Dennard. And this has been Blurbs Sell Books. Take care, y'all.